Greetings. I'm your host, Brother Jumoke Fetayo, with the Reparations Now podcast. We have a very, very special guest today, and we're looking forward to spending time with her. Even though she's on the road, she has agreed to continue to do this interview for us, and we're excited to bring her on. We started out this program, these podcasts, and we knew at some point we wanted to get to what I call the heavy hitters in the reparation movement. And now we've moved into that zone. And coming forward to you now, and we'd like you to just take a pause before we get into it and like and subscribe to our channel. You can add comments to the interview as it proceeds today. And so we have with us today Robin Rue Simmons. Robin Rue Simmons has made her story in the front of reparations with what she has done in Evanston. And we had the honor of interviewing her like shortly after the bill was passed, I think 2019, about 5 years ago. And so a whole lot has happened since then. And so we're glad to bring her back on to get an update of what has happened since then. A movie has been made, a rap song has been made, so many other things have been made, money has increased. And so we're going to unpack all of that now. So we're going to bring on Robin Rue Simmons, the architect of the Evanston Reparations Model. How you doing today, Robin?
I'm blessed, grace and peace, and thank you for your patience with me in my car while I'm doing the podcast, but I didn't want to miss it, so thank you for accommodating me. And as you mentioned, Brother Jumoke, it actually is 5 years this November that the City of Evanston passed that resolution 126R19 that established the nation's first tax-funded municipal reparations legislation, and we are well into dispersing the millions of dollars that have been committed to Black folks in the City of Evanston.
All right. So why don't you just, for people who may or may not be that familiar with the story, just give us a little of the backdrop of how you came to even bring reparations forward and how it got passed and into now disbursement.
Absolutely. So in 2019, in fact, in 2017, I won my campaign for elected office to serve as a Fifth Ward council person in Evanston, which is a Chicago suburb, diverse, predominantly white, but a rich legacy of Black families, legacy families in Evanston, about 15%. And our story is the same as everyone else is viewing. We had a racially segregated community separated by not only Jim Crow law, but zoning laws before that were anti-Black, that really modeled and reinforced redlining. And so I went into office really thinking that I would do good. I would do some equity work. I would do, advocacy work for Black businesses and Black families and home ownership and so on. And I saw pretty quickly into my term that there was no form of ordinary public policy that would address our harm, that would close our racial gaps, and that would be just enough for the trauma and the terror and the harm and crimes against our people, for the institution of slavery and its legacies. And in 2019, my work as a public servant evolved to reparations. I didn't go in office thinking about reparations at all, hyper locally. Of course, I was supportive of HR 40. And so it evolved to reparations. When I had the revelation, I knew with such clarity that it was the path forward. I had no clue how to do it, but I knew that it was the path forward. So I called the question pretty immediately. And then I began seeking education, support, mentorship within the reparations movement. And my Google searching and researching was very helpful. It helped me understand the case for reparations more. I really have to lift up Ta-Nehisi Coates' case for reparations, which is what had me thinking about repair hyper locally beyond HR 40 and the institution of slavery, and the examples that he gave in the city of Chicago, our neighbor city just to the immediate south. And so as I was learning and building and growing and researching, I was headed to Congressional Black Caucus, which is wild because I'm actually leaving to go there on Tuesday once I get, long story short, but actually it's 5 years to the anniversary of that. And I got in touch with a mentor of mine, Judge Lionel Jean Baptiste, told him I'm going to CBC. I saw there's a reparations panel. Can you put me in touch with someone there that I could learn from and that can support the work that we're doing in Evanston? And he introduced me to Dr. Ron Daniels, and the rest is history. So we had already had unanimous city council support. We had already passed for introduction, and we were just ready to pass for action. And I was able to meet Dr. Ron Daniels, and later I met the NARC commissioners, and from there I met Cam Howard, and that was the introduction to where my power came from, meeting the Chicago and Cobra chapter. And so through NARC and in Cobra, I had more reparations education. I had grassroots supporters. The Cobra chapter showed up in person to be advocates. I had the late and great Dr. Conrad Rural, who made himself available to me. He was so generous with his time. And, you know, the rest is really history, and the support that it took to strengthen the passing. So the legislation passed, and we continue to work with Narcan and Cobra over the years to help educate our community. And so what we did in 2019 was we established a reparations committee. We established a reparations fund with the first $10 million of our recreational cannabis sales tax. We've since increased it an additional $10 million with real estate transfer taxes. And we established our priorities, and that was based on a process that was informed by Black Evanston. And in the community sessions, we asked just a few questions. What forms of reparations do we want to see as Black Evanston? What are some recommendations on how we fund it, and who would be eligible for reparations in Evanston? And that feedback went to committee, and the recommendations were given to City Council. City Council passed it, and now the committee, which I chair, although I'm not on City Council anymore, I've been appointed by the mayor to chair the committee. We continue to do that work informed by continued public engagement. And I could stop there, but I would love to be able to share not so much just Evanston, but how that one bold move of a municipality has inspired now over 100 initiatives to advance reparations.
Sure. Well, let's talk about Evanston just a little bit more. One of the critiques I know is that some people said it's just a housing program, and so maybe I'd like for you to address that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was immediate criticism. And a lot of that really was stirred up in neighborhood politics. Evanston's a small city. It was a political season, actually, when we were passing. So the nation got caught up into local politics. But there is some legitimate pushback on housing only. And so I support whatever consensus Black folks land on, understanding that municipalities don't have the capacity to deliver full repair, and that with a harm report, you can really begin to define what remedies are addressed and how you fund it. And so the pushback was, it was only a housing program, it was insufficient redress, and there was a lot of, organizing around that argument, which was unnecessary because really it's a false debate. A housing initiative alone is insufficient, but this is only a first step. And our priorities have 3 goals: housing, economic development, and educational initiatives. And then there are so many other areas of harm that need to be addressed. But a couple things. One, everything is not in the purview of a city government. So when you look at housing is insufficient or the city is insufficient redress, you have to really remember that all government entities are responsible. Everyone that harmed Black folks through legislative action, and other programmatic action and incidents like the Tulsa race massacre and so on are responsible. So this is one entity, one first step, but it is tangible, it is measurable, and it certainly is repairing the financial life of Black folks. And as a believer in full repair or comprehensive reparations, I believe, and those that I work alongside believe that, you know, the harm is multifaceted, the repair must be. And so we're looking at five components of repair, and compensation and restitution is just one of them. We're working towards the other. And so I'll say that we have dispersed over $5 million directly to Black residents, $25,000 at a time. We have far more to do. Another 15 million has already been committed while we fight to identify additional funds and different additional ways to repair the Black community.
Right. And so, one of the things that I also add, you mentioned it, but when people talk about it being a housing program, was that's what the community landed on, right? That
Right.
was after a
Yeah.
series
Important to note that wasn't, we didn't decide as a committee we want a housing program. We decided we want a reparations initiative. We went through a community process, and the community gave all the recommendations. It's the same in every city that we go to. But the consensus of the feedback from the Evanston community was housing, more so than anything else. And so we have other priorities, and we are looking to other institutions that are responsible to the harm. So the recommendations for housing, we have an elected school board and a separate school um, district. We have a university in town that was named as an institution that should be repairing. So we believe that our example should be modeled by other institutions that are responsible, and we fully support more reparations initiatives and more funding as well.
Yes. So you also were beginning to talk about, and you mentioned again how what happened in Evanston really set off a blaze all around the country and inspired people to do local reparations. I know I've been in the reparations movement for a little while, and it hadn't been a lot of conversation considering how to to look at local reparations. And so, but once you did what you all did in Evanston, it's like, okay, we could do this in Atlanta and Chicago and Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and people started in Detroit, and people started moving and making things happen. So you came out of office and established a organization to really assist people, because you could have just been happy with your victory there in Evanston and just continue to work on that locally. However, you decided to be an example and provide resources and information to people. You hold a wonderful symposium every year. We can talk about that. But let's talk a little bit, I guess, about FirstRepair and how it has evolved into a national campaign for local reparations.
Well, Jamoke, FirstRepair was established as a response to the demand that has not stopped for local leaders all across this nation that heard about what Evanston did and reached out. They found me on Instagram or my letters to my house. Got in touch with the city of Evanston to locate me to ask what would be a best path forward and how could I share my learnings and tools so that they can lead something similar in their city. And I did that organically without any structure or resource or support, and realized that we needed to really sustain this work and have the capacity to serve the movement in a professional way. And I established FirstRepair. I established FirstRepair pretty immediately after office. When I retired from office, I was able to travel to Guinea-Bissau and do some special things there. And then that June, I established FirstRepair to be a center, a resource to the local reparations movement, which is organized and in momentum and standing on the shoulders of the reparations movement that's been fighting in a volunteer grassroots capacity for decades. And so we are based in Evanston. We're a small non-for-profit, full-time staff, as well as many others that provide mentorship and additional support, including Jamoke. So I don't know if you shared with your listeners or not, but Jamoke is an example of one of the legacy reparations leader that informs the work of First Repair and keep us true to the values and pillars of reparations and the best practices of reparations. He serves as my personal senior advisor and also serves as the South Regional leader for our reparations organizations across the United States. And so we have all different types of programming. Tomorrow, for example, is why I'm driving. I'll be flying out to New York to work alongside grassroots leaders in New York and other New York leaders, as well as national leaders, to make sure New York is supported as they advance their state legislation. The day after that, I go to DC to participate on Judiciary Brain Trust panel. The late and great Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's annual reparations panel will continue, so I'll be able to serve on that panel, like Howard and Dr. Ron Daniels and others. And then I do, one-on-one, speak directly with community, okay, and then everybody, anyone who is leading an initiative, planning an initiative, or even reparation curious, joins us monthly on fourth Thursday, 12:30 Central Standard Time. We have a regional strategy session where we hear expert presentation, and then we also have regional reports, so everyone is updated on what's happening in the reparations movement. I also have developed toolkits and other resources and discussion guides. There's a documentary that I recommend everybody watch. It is on Amazon Prime. It's called The Big Payback. It is directed by Erica Alexander and Whitney Dow. And it's a really transparent look at the challenges, but also the rewards of advancing a reparations initiative. And all of this can be seen at FirstRepair.org. And we're also on all the social sites as well. So please follow us there for additional updates.
Yes. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with First Repair and to give guidance to the great work that you're doing. It's funny. I have my questions here, and you answer two or three of them at a time. So I was like, okay, knock that one off. But let's talk a little bit more about the film. I think that was just very important step in the reparations movement, really, to have a film to actually chronicle, like you said, to show transparent what actually happened while it was happening. You really get that happen, that a film is being made in the middle of something historic being made, and it's a good film, and just maybe share a little bit more about that process and how that came to be.
Well, I just shared this earlier. I did a podcast, and Erica Alexander literally reached out to me on my Instagram inbox. And I'm like, Max, is this Maxine? And she shared that first she had heard about the work that was happening in Evanston. And we were having a big town hall really to really celebrate the city for its bold step, but more important than that, educate the city on what was ahead of us and exactly what is reparations, because there was a core group of folks leading it, but the city needed to know what exactly is reparations. How is it different than ordinary public policy? So she reached out and asked, could she come to the town hall? Of course, the answer.
Okay, we're having some trouble with the connection there.
Jackson.
So
Was an opportunity to expand that conversation. And then the rest is history. So she came to the town hall and started following the work, and eventually in 2022 released at Tribeca Film Festival, The Big Payback.
Yes, and Yeah, it was a great, very important, I think, milestone for the reparations movement, just in general, to have a film about on that caliber. And so, also, while we're talking about the arts and moving the message, one of the things that you also taken upon yourself was to organize hip hop artists to produce a song to lift up the reparations movement. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So arts and culture is so powerful, especially music and especially hip hop. And I think about how hip hop has inspired and informed so many political movements and justice movements. And I thought that it should do the same for reparations. And so I was able to convene a group of artists that prepared a hip hop song. And they are now movement leaders. They are showing up in spaces. But long story short, they wrote and we together produced a song that is called Reparations. It's streaming on iTunes and wherever you listen to music, Spotify, and all those places, YouTube. And it really is a policy paper, a lyrical policy paper. It really talks about the case for reparations, inspires folks to support reparations, and what the other side of reparations could look like. And there's a music video as well. It's available on YouTube. You can again go to FirstRepair.org and hear the song and also view the video. But the artists include Macon, Georgia's own son, Alaz Muhammad, a brother of the nation, and an incredible artivist that you should follow on Instagram and other places. It includes the legendary hip hop artist Raz Kaz out of Los Angeles. He is voted by Ice Cube himself as top 5 MCs. Kai Asia, a sister from the New Jersey area, now living in Las Vegas, and the Holy Thief, otherwise known as King, is on the album. And then we go at FirstRepair. And the artists are incredible. They're committed. They perform at our symposium and will be performing here at our symposium. Well, Jamoke, you may not know this, but they've just released their second work with the album to release at the symposium that is educating people on what Project 2025 is and why we need to be concerned about the potential of that being activated with, certain presidential outcomes. So that's the group, and the group technically is called FirstRepair. We had to send it to distribution and had to name the group, and right now it's a collaboration of artists. But you can find the song on all of your streaming platforms under FirstRepair.
Yeah, we're going to share the song right now.
Awesome.
Stay up top. Stay up top. They gotta be on the up here. Let's go. Okay.
In spite of all the terror, all the harm, all the crimes against our humanity, we have over 400 years of Black resilience. Acknowledge, apologize, repair. This is a call to action.
I told Pharaoh, let my people go. And I feel like Joshua and Jericho. God on our side, so we all in know. Mathematics, Asiatic, actual problematic for savages. We demand an answer for these damages. First you gonna acknowledge, then apologize for real, more than teary eyes. Say it was a Holocaust, own up to the homicide. Ally, oh you anti, now you gotta pick a side. all colors, all generations. We came for reparation. No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration. We came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration. We came for reparations.
We the fruit of what our ancestors prayed for. First generation college graduates and homeowners. You look deeply at the roots and you see way more. History literally getting combed over. USD is an incomplete remedy. You ain't got enough denominations in your treasury to bring back to form all the souls that were taken. Spirits bring to life through these phrases. We came for reparations.
100% profit, slavery abolished, do Jim Crow, red line, blackballed knowledge. The war on drugs was a war on blacks. And if you speak truth to power, then you under attack financially. You reparated Israel, Native Americans. Past due, you reparated me. You reparated Japanese interns, but you designated we, the people who built this country, never really set us free.
No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration. We came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration. We came for
Over
reparations.
400 years of oppression is built to how we heal. Placing law, policies, police try to demolish me. Cause of my godly biology. So let's factor, first repair. Power of the economy, black unity, solidarity. Not asking for handouts or charity. But how can we overcome disparities? We came for reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration. We came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration. We came for
Golden, I
reparations.
see the vision like I was looking through her eyes. It's time we get paid, need my piece of the pie. We want reparations, no more segregations. Talking 40 acres, now that's a celebration. On the back of the bus, I'm feeling just like Rosa. For my ancestors, look amongst us. For my children's children, I walk like Moses. We the people, God bless the chosen.
All right, so I want everybody on this side of the room to say, agitate. Let me hear you. This side, educate. That side, organize. Again, agitate, educate, organize. How we going to make reparations rise? Educate, organize. How we going to make reparations rise? Agitate, educate, organize.
Yes, yes. One thing I really appreciate about that video is, the focus on the work that's being done to move reparations forward. So often when people are marketing reparations, music or either other forms, people emphasize the slave ship scenes, the lynching scenes, the brother with the whip back and all of that. And to me, I think that what we're doing is we're reinforcing the trauma for our people. And even if we're at least going to do that, and you did a little bit in the very beginning, which was fine, but then the rest of it is on the positive, like this is what we're doing, this is how we're addressing it. And I just appreciate that about the video. And I think, I've had this debate with people over the years and how we market reparations. And so I just wanted to, salute you in terms of that.
I appreciate that. And it was intentional. I mean, the folks that you saw, that was a year's worth of movement work. It was really like a year-end recap is what the video is. That was dozens of convenings and strategy sessions and individual leaders. So we wanted to take the time to really celebrate the folks that are doing the work today. It opens with acknowledging some of our ancestors and some quotes from our ancestors. So we always make sure we're recognizing the labor that they have invested before us. But it really people need to know who's doing this work. You know, you get a few people that kind of are identified as the spokespeople of, you know, movements, but it is hundreds and more probably that are doing this work in cities big and small all across this nation. It's not just Evanston, it's not just California, it's, you know, Decatur, Georgia, and Amherst, Massachusetts. It's not just Black folks. We have allies that also fight really hard for us. And I want to make sure that the broader community looking at reparations understands that it's really common sense and it's commonplace, and we take some of the provocativeness away from it and make it be more attainable and justice.
Yes. And you just mentioned allies there. I know you've had some really, I think, great stories in terms of how allies have shown up there in Evanston. And maybe we could talk about that a little bit, particularly like the interfaith community there in Evanston and how they've showed up to support this reparations movement.
Absolutely. So in Evanston, we have an interfaith coalition that is made up of synagogues, mosques, temples, all different types of Christian faith, Catholic churches, and so on. And they, even before we had our reparations movement, had a racial justice coalition where they were supporting racial justice initiatives. And then naturally, they joined the fight for reparations completely unsolicited. Before I could even have an ask, before we called them to the table, they began organizing themselves as they should. They began producing white papers on why reparations and toolkits on reparations from a perspective from the Torah and the Quran and the Bible, and, you know, the moral position for reparations, the legislative position for reparations, the legal position for reparations. And then they did something really special. They started to raise funds to actively repair. And in a short period of time, from Juneteenth to Dr. Martin Luther King holiday, our small community of allied churches, it was about 13 houses of worship, I'm sorry, not just churches, raised $1 million to be a investment, a down payment on their investment to support the work that was happening at a municipal level and be a companion in that work from a community level. And so their fundraising, that $1 million and all the money to come, goes to a Black-led organization. It's called the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston. And there are now cities modeling even the Reparations Stakeholder Authority. There's an Asheville Stakeholder Authority and other communities that are coming next. But they show up, they write letters of support, they educate their communities that don't understand reparations and those that have a historical sort of practice of anti-Blackness. They educate and advocate and organize, just like Sister Nikichi said at the end of that song. And in our case, our interfaith community is led by, at this time, and they switch terms from term to term, they have different leaders, but Rabbi Andrea London of Beth Emmet Synagogue and others that work with her. And they come to our symposium, they volunteer, and now they share their way of organizing as an interfaith ally community with other communities. So if anyone of your viewers wants to learn more, we would gladly make the connection, because they have developed toolkits and workshops and things for other interfaith coalitions.
Yeah, you know, when you spoke at our town hall meeting in Florida, in South Florida, when you mentioned that about the interfaith, there was a woman from the interfaith community, and she kind of got excited, particularly about the $1 million fundraising that they did. Like, we just didn't follow up with her. We still should follow up with her, but she was very got excited about that part of your presentation and how they showed up, and it seemed like she was supportive as well. Wanted to be supportive of our initiative there in South Florida as well. So let's talk a little bit about the stakeholders you just mentioned and why that is important in stakeholders authority.
The stakeholder authority is important because governments are fickle and we don't know what the next term values or priorities will be. And we can't trust the government just yet. We're ways from being able to trust the government. And that's a reality. As much as we have hope and as proud as we are, some of them that are taking these bold actions. And so these independent bodies that are Black led and funded can sustain the reparations movement. So we've seen councils change. It happened in Asheville, North Carolina is an example where the brother there that introduced and championed reparations was not reelected. And we saw how that really challenged the work that was happening there. We have, fortunately, under the leadership of Councilwoman Vanessa Hall Harper, and with the support of many others, she was able to lead the outgoing mayor before he left to sign an executive order to establish a reparations task force. Now,
In Tulsa.
in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all want that. And so now the hope is that we get that champion in office and as mayor to continue that work and implement that executive order that the mayor signed. So we need to make sure that we have independent bodies that direct the funds, that continue to hear the voice and prioritize the voice of Black people, so that these programs aren't top down, where you have government bodies that aren't part of the harm community, that don't share our values, dictating what happens with these budgets when they're passed. And the other thing is, anything is subject to change. So you can have a 10-year policy, it could be amended or changed, or we don't value it anymore. It's not in the money in the budget and so on. And so eventually we need to move to independent bodies. I understand that NARC, the National African American Reparations Commission, is thinking about and working towards a finance authority to help with something like this more of a national level. But right now, communities that are doing this work can partner with their local community foundations to at least get established, get some seed funding, be fiscally sponsored as they organize their infrastructures and staffing and so on, so that eventually we can get to Black folks owning the process, deciding how redress is delivered to whom, how, and so on.
Yes. Yeah, this is important. I think that's the importance of the stakeholder authority or similar organization, is that it's a outside entity such that can have this life of its own, and like you said, and be not dependent on the fickleness of politics and politicians, like you said, coming in and out, and administrations coming in and out, and things like that. So yeah, I think that's an important learning lesson that from Evanston, is that create these separate entities. Yeah, so we also just want to acknowledge, we got some comments. We want to acknowledge, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that, Dumodu, with Dr. Uwa Osurimi. We see you. We thank you. Sister Okoti Speaks. We see you. We thank you for your comments. This is awesome. This is Okoti Speaks. This is awesome. Definitely going to spread it. Thanks, sister, for your hard work and caring for our people. Yeah, she's a regular follower of this podcast. We thank you. And so now let's go a little deeper. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in this work with reparations in Evanston? What would you say has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge has been, in Evanston, I studied sort of our political climate and the legislative process before I came into office. So I was able to come into office implementing and taking action. But the challenge, I believe, is right now legal. So we have legal challenges in Evanston, and Evanston is just being made an example of. The legal challenge really is against the movement. And the way Evanston set a precedent to, mobilize other initiatives, them winning a lawsuit against Evanston is going to challenge the reparations movement generally. And so developing legal frameworks, making sure they're constitutional and viable, and then also having the resources to defend reparations opposition when they take us to the courts. And so all of this is about political strategy. You know, the conservative party has been stacking the courts and preparing to fight against progress for Black folks and others for a long time. And now the courts are really stacked against us. And so we need to make sure that our policy are viable and legally sound so that we can withstand legal challenges. Fortunately, there are incredible movement lawyers that are on the case. Too many to name, you know, Sister Nikichi Taifa is, you know, queen sister, queen mother, like cheerleader, activist, long time. We all know and love her, but there are many, many others that I've had the great fortune of meeting over the last few years. Can't say enough about Attorney Adjoa and Justin Hansford from Howard Law School, founder of Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center. Judge Lionel Jean Baptiste, who is now a judge, but had a lot of early thought around reparations and local reparations. You think about Attorney Nick Cummings. That brother was the corporation counsel of the City of Evanston. He was our head attorney that led our law department to support reparations. Without that legal department support, we wouldn't be here today because it could have been paralyzed in our legal department. So many others to name. I really would be here all day, but Professor Justin Hansford is going to be launching a reparations bar association, which as that develops, Jamoke, I hope you would invite him on the show so he can explain the resource. And Sister Mother Adjoa already has a body of movement lawyers that she works with, and maybe in a future show you can talk more just about the legal professionals in general that are available to the movement. Again, there are many, and I'm sure I missed some key
Lisa Holder.
Yes, Lisa Holder. Sister, that sister is something. I mean, you know, in California, the work that she has done from a human rights perspective, just profound. I've learned so much just listening to the way she explains the case with such clarity and such confidence and just matter of fact. So I feel really good about the movement's defense mechanisms right now, as we have all of these legal professionals that are organizing for reparations.
Okay. Yes. And we're going to be successful in this lawsuit. We will prevail.
No doubt. Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
And so I was just curious, like in terms of you mentioned how people were beating your door down and ask you questions and getting messages any way they can to you. What would you say is the main question that is, if there was one that rises to the top that you get asked the most from local municipalities wanting to do reparations work?
It's always very general, like how do we get started? But when you move beyond that question, it is usually the first question is, how do you defend the questions? How do we fund it? And how is it legally viable? Those are the main two questions. And that was the only concern and pushback that we had in Evanston. There was unanimous support for it, but there was, you know, legitimate concerns about how do we fund it? We already have a budget deficit. You know, there are already so many special interests that are fighting for the same public dollars. So that's fair. And then it being legally viable, how do we defend it? Those are the main two questions. And then I would say next would be, how do we sustain it? Political will and changing in, you know, the dais and these types of things. How do we sustain it with community organizing and ally support? And the interfaith community has been our answer. That's been an infrastructure in a lot of cities. So many cities have been able to lean into their interfaith community, but not all. All cities don't have organized coalitions of interfaith. So it looks different. And so that's what we do at FirstRepair. We help folks identify organizations that already have a history of sort of progressive values and racial justice that can be a partner to sustain the work. In some cases, it might be a family foundation. In the case of FirstRepair, we were initially funded by a family that shared our values and wanted to learn more about how to extend their commitment to democracy into reparations, and believed in us enough to seed our work so that we could stabilize and have some time to think about how to show up and serve the movement. And I'll forever be, grateful for that family, a white family that did something very unpopular within their community, something very bold outside of their regular values, but saw that reparations is justice. It is democracy. It is the highest form of racial justice is reparations. And now we're seeing many, many more do the same.
Yes, yes. And some people argue that there was a, special. I heard somebody put it this way: it was a special sauce. I remember how I shared it, which is something magic in the water. But there was definitely a confluence of some different things that came together to make Evanston successful. In addition to you being a champion, the interfaith community, Brother Al Tillery, Dino, and research. Nick Cummings coming in specifically to help with the with a mindset on how to make this reparations work for you all. There was so many different things. However, as you shared with me, we can find those assets in other cities, and other cities are identifying people that have expertise in legal, or expertise in research, expertise in fundraising, allied support, and things like that to make it possible. So I don't know if there was a question in that. What do you? Well, I guess it is like, what would you say makes Evanston unique, and is it only unique to Evanston?
So we're special, and I'll say that. Okay. I was able to organize all of these people, but they were receptive. And it's all about in the spirit in which you call the question and deliver the case and demand in a collaborative way, assuming the best in people, sharing it based on the facts of our history, introducing what we say our values are, and showing a smart path forward to attain it. And so I think every city has a Nick Cummings, a Dino, a Robin, a community foundation. It's just a matter of doing it in a spirit that is not combative, and going into it knowing this is going to be difficult, it's hard, it's going to be a long process. There's no one answer that's right, but the way to win reparations is to start the process. To be paralyzed in the debate on who has the smartest proposal and what remedy is right and wrong, and what funding mechanism, all of them, every remedy, every funding mechanism, which one can we get to first? Prove that concept and build on that. And that's exactly what happened in Evanston. We started with 10 million. We've gone from there. We started with housing. We've expanded to cash. Cash is now we're in a conversation about economic development and education and so on. And it was just Evanston. Now it's the state of California, New York, and Illinois. So just little by little, a little becomes a lot. That's my favorite African proverb. It applies to every area of my life. And certainly I've seen it applied to the reparations movement.
There's another one. I think it's 1 coconut filled the basket.
Okay, I love that one too. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So as we begin to come to a close, I was trying to think. Oh yeah, we didn't really discuss the. I guess we could talk about like what's next, what's coming up. I know that we're working together on the National Resource Center, and so and we just had the unveiling of the mural on the National Resource Center, painted on the outside of the National Resource Center and Office for FirstRepair. And so, yeah, let's just get into, I guess, what's upcoming now and where are we headed?
Well, we're headed to this resource center, and I'm so excited about that. One of the key programs is actually a reparations leadership and development cohort where we can work together, different initiative towards an end goal of a legislative introduction. And it will be announced who those initial initiatives are going to be at our symposium on December 4th. And the program will actually start in early 2025. The Resource Center is also going to have a reparations library and lecture series. There's going to be programming for Black Joy. But really, it's a think tank, it's a hub, it's a center for us to get together, continue learning, sharing, but mostly, it's centered around solutions only. Our goal is to establish reparations, get it funded, implement it, and disperse repair. This is a movement that is beyond apology and really looking to begin to measure the work that we're doing for reparations. And so we'll officially launch. I'm going to stop walking because I think I don't know where I'm going. We'll officially launch December 4th, but we did have our first step, which was the mural. And you can go to our YouTube page, which is FirstRepair on YouTube, and you can see a video where Jamoke was able to come and give us a beautiful libation ceremony to unveil the mural that speaks to where we're at in the movement, making reparations common sense and commonplace. And it's wrapped in Adinkra symbols and wrapped in QR codes that will populate with more reparations education. So even if you can't come inside the building, you can learn something just being outside of the building.
Yes, yes. So yes, the National Resource Center, I think that's so important because, in our movement, we know that it's important to institutionalize things, actually have an actual institution, to have a physical brick and mortar institution, but also just to have an institution itself is so key for intergenerational passing down of this work that we do. And so we're proud to have, I think it's just phenomenal that we have a National Resource Center in Evanston, and it's in its infancy, but it has a lot of potential to make a big impact in the world. So as we close down, perhaps you'd like to leave us with your contact information. I know you're still getting bombarded, but your contact information and whatever other closing remarks you would like to share with us as we close out.
I would love to. I want to thank you again, Jamoke, for your leadership. I'm learning so much alongside you. I can be reached at FirstRepair.org. Our email there, info@FirstRepair.org, will come to me. I would also love to stay engaged with everyone on socials, mostly Instagram, but I'm on all of them. And I would love to invite everyone to 3 invitations. One is our national strategy sessions that are on Zoom every 4th Saturday. You can register at FirstRepair.org. Our regional strategy sessions, if you're in the South region, you will be led and working alongside Brother Jamoke, and the other regions have other leaders. And then our symposium, which is December 4th through the 6th, 3 rich days of reparations convenings. We're going to have more of an outcome-centered theme this year, solutions only being the 5-year anniversary of Evanston passing. And then we also make sure that we balance this heavy lift with wellness. We have a wellness room where you can get massages and some aromatherapy. We're going to expand that. I'm hoping that Jamoke is going to say yes to leading some yoga or camp, some qigong, something like that. I haven't made that ask yet. But we also make sure that we include wellness as a priority. We have elected officials that come, stakeholder, grassroots leaders. We even have international guests. In past years, we've had members of CARICOM attend and participate in the symposium because this is the U.S. arm of a global Black movement for repair. And I hope to stay in touch with you all and achieve reparations now.
Yes, yes. And yeah, no problem with the yoga. Yeah, I've attended many reparations conferences and convenings, and this symposium is very high level. It's not like a bunch of just people talking, a lot of talking heads. It's actually you're engaged in working meetings to learn how to do this work in your local city. And I think it's one of the best reparations convenings in this country. And, you know, you leave not only inspired, you leave not only having made connections, but actually leave having gained some real information on how to move the needle for reparations in your local city. So thank you. Hats off to you, sister, for these convenings, and they continue to get better and better each year. I think I missed the first year, but been to all the subsequent ones, and they get better and better each year. And so thank you for this work that you do on so many different levels, from the symposium to the rap to the big payback to Evanston getting over $10 million, and all of the work that you continue to do as a leader. And also, we didn't really talk about, but also you did mention CBC and actually working with, you know, Sheila Jackson Lee and HR 40, because like I said, that's ultimately, you know, still the ultimate goal in terms of the reparations movement. So just thank you so much, Sister Robin Rue Simmons, for all your work and all that you do.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that's tuning in. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. All right. So you've been listening to the Reparations Now podcast with your host, Jumoke Fetayo, sponsored by Reparations United. I want to thank my engineer, Brother Major, for doing this work to make it possible for me to put these presentations on and this podcast. And we ask you to like and subscribe. Again, thank you for the comments we had in the chat. And we look forward to continuing. And actually, it's interesting, she mentioned Ajua Turo, because we do plan on her, hopefully bringing her on as one of our guests very, very soon, as we come up to the anniversary of the founding meeting of Cobra. And so she's one of the people that we have in mind for bringing on. But many people, we will continue to bring high-level people who have made a difference in the reparations movement. Again, my name is Brother Jumoke Fetayo. As we sign out, reparations now, reparations now, reparations now.